Right, so you might have noticed that I've been streaming an absolute ton of the same screen. And I wanted to show you this because it's actually pretty sick what's going on. So, two bots here, right? The aim is, through this game engine, which is running in the background, we're trying to create a digital twin of certain types of games. So like this is a top-down shooter, it could be a 3D sim racer, it could be like literally anything. It could be real world. You know, go like a mock-up, you know, it could be teaching a robot how to fold clothes with 2 arms, whatever. But in order to learn all this concept, we can't just dump in a model and say, hey, crack on. Because we tried to do that with Counter-Strike, and okay, it didn't work probably because of my skill and knowledge rather than, you know, the actual code. But here we're actually seeing something pretty sick emerge. So we've got 2 guys, right? Blue is our model playing, and the red one is a scripted AI, which kind of like says like, hey, you can move around and here's how you shoot and whatever. So we trained the blue guy to start with just on how to shoot, just like on when we were doing Counter-Strike, right? We said like it was too difficult for them to learn how to move and shoot, and we couldn't, you know, hook into like objectives and give them the right rewards. With this, because it's our own game engine and we're building our own game for this, we can do. So we started off with just shooting. So the blue guy can aim and he can shoot. But the random movement was all controlled by, well, it's the same random movement that we had on the scripted AI. That meant that our model could learn how to accurately shoot, aim, and, you know, not suck. Now, second part, after we refined this and it was consistently beating our red model, we moved on to the movement side of things. We said, okay, cool, we're going to let you play the game as usual, but instead of only relying on scores for shooting and not dying and whatever, we are going to judge it on its position. So is it behind cover? Is it shooting behind cover? Is it making damage or kills from somewhere that's safe? And there's a few other things as well to stop it from camping. But you can see right now here that actually this guy, the blue, for the most part, he's making sure he comes around the corner. He's really like keeping that line of sight. He's ducking out, ducking in and out. Okay, he can win on straight skill with the gun now, and I need to think about maybe how we improve that, because yeah, what's the point of just building something that can beat a bot that's kind of crap? But this is pretty sick. So remember, this is also training extremely quickly. So the headless game engine that it's running on, the 16 threads on it, and I think we're trying to aim for about 54,000 threads per second. Actions. And then one of the threads is piping all of the movement, everything that's going on, and we slow it down into real time, and this is what we're watching now. So when we get a version that is winning, so you can see in the top right there, we've got the rewards, the peak, the last update, etc. And what we're essentially looking at here is 15 minutes ago, as I'm talking, we had a new peak record of rewards. It hits plus 75.2. So we loaded that model in so we can start watching it and start making sure it's not doing weird stuff. Because there were times where, you know, blue would just spin bot. It would just spin around and around and around because it didn't know what to do, it didn't know where to aim. Or there were other like earlier models where it just sat in the corner, and it was pretty useless, honestly. But as we improve, or as blue improves, we get to spectate the best model. So right now he's playing against a scripted AI, which is pretty cool because he's learning how to move, and like if you watch, you can kind of tell this narrative of this story that yeah, he's keeping his distance, He only has access to the rifle, which is this long shot, but sometimes you'll see that the scripted AI will do like this triple blast like a shotgun, which has a shorter range, and he's actually keeping away from him, which is pretty cool. As part of this, eventually we're going to swap out the scripted AI so it starts playing itself. It's a nice bug there. So it's going to start playing itself and different variations of itself. So instead of learning like, okay, this is just how I beat this scripted AI, it needs to learn, okay, this is how I beat an opponent. This is how I beat myself. This is how I beat a different version of myself. And it's going to continually play through to like 50 million steps, or when we don't see any more improvement happening over time and the model starts to regress, in which case we'll boot back up from the last best model and try something else, maybe changing the reward structure, or who knows right now. So kind of cool, right? This is interesting to watch compared to if you saw the stream yesterday. I fixed a load of bugs. I did a better visual representation of this. So it's like it's still super vibey, but it looks decent. The next steps after this are going to be a strategic layer. And this is when we start bringing in things like objectives. So at the moment, every tick, the model decides what it wants to do. So it's setting like, okay, I want to move here, I want to aim here, I want to shoot, maybe. But the strategic model, as opposed to the tactical model that we're watching now, is going to say, right, okay, now's a good time to push because the enemy is low HP, or conversely, I am one shot away from dying, so I need to be sneaking, keep my distance, and not suck. Might also be that we introduce things like objectives that you need to pick up, some power up, or if we're talking about how we're going to translate this from this top-down game into something else, maybe we bring in the idea of like defusing a bomb, planting a bomb, all of these, like let's use Counter-Strike for this, but it could be that we do for Dota or any MOBA. But we need to just get the model trained on these different aspects, and this is curriculum learning here. We give them a curriculum to learn on. They first start by crawling, or walking before they run, so to speak, shooting before they move in this case. So yeah, anyway, look, this is fun. I'm learning a lot as usual. I want to show you how to do this as well. You can actually run this yourself if you want to. You can grab it from the description. So on GitHub, you just need to install Python, or you just need to take Claude through and he can do it with you. You can also join in Discord if you want. I'll give you the link at some point, whenever I can. But yeah. What else can I tell you about this whilst I'm on a roll? I guess, why am I doing this? Apart from it's fun, I also find that even though I've been implementing LLM-based workflows for clients for the past 3-4 years, it's always like, some flavor of the month. Like it was RAG pipelines, now it's more like knowledge graph, how to eval, stuff like that. Moving away from like a chat and into streaming components as well, like a streaming UI. What I found is that's actually quite simple in comparison to some of these more interesting use cases, which that's just a hobbyist thing for me. I'm not going to pretend that I'm anywhere near as smart as some of the genius PhD researchers that live for this stuff, but I want to learn how to do this. Coming from someone who has continually tried to learn as much as possible throughout his whole career, this is just another thing I'm going to tackle and learn. The plan, if I can do it, and I couldn't do it with Counter-Strike, but for this, is that once the bot is good enough here, we are going to do what's called a teacher, I think it's called like a teacher-student training, where the teacher, who like knows everything, right? Because our blue, yeah, he knows where the enemy is. He knows, all the angles. He knows, like, he even knows if the enemy is behind a wall. So we're like, he's essentially God mode. It's a bit of a cheating setup right now, but that is so he knows what's going on, and we also pass him like the detail that the student is going to know as a separate layer of information, so that the student, the student's not going to know like, okay, these two enemies are right behind this wall and they're pushing and I should just wait. But it can infer from what the teacher is doing that, yeah, sometimes in that situation, if it's potentially that situation, maybe I should wait and see what happens. Which means that I should be able to take some of these strategic concepts, like the strategy model, when to push, when to hide, when to do this, when to do that, and whatever, mix it with the more mechanical stuff, the tactical level, and then drop it into a game. So that you should be able to play Counter-Strike or Dota 2 or drive a car or whatever, you know? Maybe that's me being a bit naive, but that's my understanding right now. And eventually I can put it into real world, so instead of it knowing pixels, maybe it picks up camera and LiDAR or something that's attached to our drone or webcams or something, which is cool. Anyway, I've chatted a shit ton and I think I'm probably lagging a little bit. So I'm just going to leave this to go, and from there I'll give an update later on. Cheers.